Slide planned obsolescence.
With Jay Ray, he will be talking about turning technology fallacies into a leadership strategy. And for icebreaker questions, we've got a couple of them to start with today. We posted them online. We'll bring them up here. One is what can be good about planned obsolescence? And two, what is something that comes to mind when you think of planned obsolescence? So consider those two questions for a moment, and we'll pass it over to Jay.
Thank you. This is awesome. I wasn't 100% sure what type of turnout I'd get, given the fact that I was up against Todd Schechter and other amazing speakers. So thank you everyone for being here, and thank you online as well. My name is Jay Ray. I'm an IT manager with the libraries on campus, and I've been in this role for just over 11 years. I lead a, for it. I was told maybe, okay. Does this work?
New slide.
This does not work. So I'll just use, it looks on. I'll just use the keyboard. That's all good. No problem.
Hi, I'm Jay Ray.
Technology as usual.
Introductions and helpful context.
Fun times. You gotta plug it in. I'm not sure if everyone realized that. So today's talk is about plugging it in. So I've been in my role about 11 years. I lead a technology services and support unit within the libraries known as the end user computing team, which is made up of 4 wonderful permanent staff members and myself, of course. I'm less wonderful, but we'll get to that. And 65-ish highly capable student staff. We manage services across service points in 4 libraries, but we have technology everywhere. And today, I'm here to tell you that starting in 2 weeks, I'm taking a vacation.
Slide with Italy.
Okay? This has been a vacation 6 years in the making. It started when I submitted the paperwork for my Italian citizenship in 2019. I have 3 young kids. We had planned to travel. We got our Italian citizenship. We had the plans in place for Denver, Puerto Rico, and finally Italy. Italy being the final trip that would culminate in an international trip for my children, the first of its kind.
Map and 3 photos.
You may know where this is going. March 28th, 2020, we were supposed to go to Denver. As you might expect, none of those things took place. So we're finally taking this trip. And because it took so long to get it on the books, it's going to be 5 weeks long.
Slide. Jay, what are you talking about?
I heard gasps. That's awesome. So you might be thinking, what does this have to do with anything, Jay? Why are you bringing this up to us at IT Professionals Conference? What does this have to do with planned obsolescence? And after all, you're here for leadership. What does this have to do with leadership? Well, today I plan to introduce you to the connection that I see between planned and perceived obsolescence, the leadership strategy that bore out of my own personal desire for variety in my work, and the practical application of these ideas to better serve those around you as you move through life's big and maybe not so big moments.
Slide planned obsolescence.
So let's talk about shared understanding of the concept of planned obsolescence. There are plenty of variations on this, but I am specifically referring to the modern concept of technologies that have perceived degradation timelines regardless of the reality. So our icebreaker question was intended to get those creative juices flowing. I didn't see anything in the chat yet, so we'll just go ahead and do a shout out in the room. What do you think of when I say the words planned obsolescence? We'll say a device, and go ahead and just shout it out.
Slide explore the lineup.
Oh, gee.
Apple.com iPhone 16 lineup page.
Thank you. That's a plant, by the way. I'm going to assume that at least some of us thought about this. You may have even thought about this specific screen, a for-profit company who wants us to care about incremental change. And so therefore, they let us easily compare the different models. But everyone in this room is in technology or in an adjacent field. And so I'm also going to assume that you also realize this isn't inherently or strictly real. right? So that's why perceived obsolescence is also a part of this.
4 variants.
Technology ages, technology needs change. Older hardware can't keep up with modern software needs. These are natural things that come with especially the pace of technology that we see today. So the perception that it was done through like capitalistic ploys, corporations, yada, 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 inherently ignores the fact that our world changes and that we need to continue to remain fresh along the way. So a recent case in point, I suppose, is AI. I'll get to that a little bit later, but I won't spend too much time on AI today. Also note that the iPhone is 2 decades old. I know, it makes you feel. But the people that originally designed it, what it does today is unfathomable. So like, it's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility that perceived obsolescence is in fact a fallacy. That was all to say, don't worry, I know it was a provocative statement at the beginning, but it's not that provocative in reality. So any thoughts on items that have a true planned obsolescence strategy? Because I want to give a counterpoint here. Anybody? I mean, yeah, no, that would be a real plant. Don't do that.
Photo slide.
These
7 smoke detectors.
smoke detectors have a real planned obsolescence strategy. And it's not some capitalistic ploy to get us to buy new, shiny smoke detectors, right? If it was a ploy, it would be by the legislature through rules and regulations around public safety. Jay also brought up in our chat car seats. No one balks at that framing, right? Because it's a safety matter. Point being, it's natural for things to change through the passage of time, adjustments based on our current context, or the cascading effects of a complete fluke of science. So,
Slide. Leadership.
more J, more context. Planned obsolescence as a leadership methodology started in the early 2010s when I was at the Art Institute of Indianapolis. I came into that role as a desktop support professional, taking it from people who had probably been lifers in those roles. They had spent every day grinding away at the exact same problems every single week, potentially even. And I thought to myself, as an engineer in background, that I wanted something more. I wanted to be able to solve the problem and maybe solve it for good, or automate the solution, or delegate the solution to capable student staff that were in my employ. I didn't want to have to do it myself anymore. At the time, I jokingly referred to it as making myself obsolete. Now, it may come out inherently selfish, and I will say originally it was, right? It was this sense that I didn't want to have to do the extra work of solving the exact same problems every day. And I just said it, I didn't, it was all about me originally. But what I saw was that it changed the dynamic in that workplace to give me more space to think strategically, get my graduate degree along the way, and empower those around me to see me more as a partner and escalation point instead of the sole provider of technology. By the way, the Art Institute of Indianapolis is a graphics-heavy place. So lots of technology there, and lots of people who understood that technology. It shouldn't have just been me anyway. Lots of work for a single person to overcome. Over time, though, what I realized was this is an easy way to view the work for the betterment of everyone, not just myself. To focus on building better teams, better systems, and empowering people with growth opportunities along the way, all while myself to work on solving the bigger, the more strategic problems because I had already made myself obsolete solving the previous ones. Then, lightning struck. In 2014, I came to UW-Madison. A whole new set of problems, a whole new set of things to navigate, a whole new group of people to support and elevate along the way. Therefore, it remained the same, my goals, that I wanted to bring people up through making myself even just a little bit obsolete and then move on to the next problem, lather, rinse, repeat. So there we go.
What about job security?
About job security. So aside from the fact that this is potentially inherently selfish, it's also a problem of framing whenever it comes to job security. The methodology comes across as counter to what we expect for work, right?
Text, I do not think it means what you think it means.
Longevity and loyalty within a workplace comes with job security. You know and do more on a daily basis. You have more institutional knowledge, and this is an inflammatory word. I apologize for it, but it's a good one. You hoard it because it will lead to opportunities and advancement. That's mine, right?
Task and information hoarding.
Why would I want to make it seem as though I am unnecessary presenting at this conference with something that's calling me obsolete? Especially in our current state of cost cutting and consolidation. Naturally, over the course of my time at UW-Madison, I've had the opportunity to see people retire, move on to other roles, go on vacation, start families, participate in hobbies that take them away from work. These are all natural things, just like planned obsolescence, right? They should be normalized. They should be encouraged. And as a leader, they should be planned for.
Plan for now and the future.
Thinking about all this through the lens of obsolescence opens up the possibility of engaging with the work at more strategically valuable levels, using that institutional knowledge and understanding that leading with it instead of holding on to it and dealing with the burdens alone, only to have things change out from under you anyway, like AI or smart exit. Callback. Admittedly, I think about this as a leader and manager naturally because I have 65 student staff. I have 4 early career professionals that report to me. They move on. They find bigger and better jobs. They want my job and I'm not leaving. So they want to obviously move on to their next step, and that's fine.
Slide, the components.
So
Pithy acronym to be determined.
as I was working through the practical components of this talk and what I wanted all of you to take away from this, I started thinking about pithy acronyms that could help getting the point across. I came up with a simple list of 16 components that spelled out addictive peppers. That was only good as a joke. And so I actually created the acronym just so we're all on the same page. That's real. But because it only seemed memorable as a joke and it would probably take till next Tuesday to explain it all, I asked my educator wife, what should I do? And she said, focus on the components, come on. Because we had that kind of relationship. So I want to spend the rest of our time considering each of these things.
Inform and enlighten.
So I thought I would start with documentation first. So we are informing and enlightening through documentation. It's the most straightforward element, if I'm going to be honest.
Strategic.
Documentation should be a part of everyone's work and a part of every leader's toolkit. It's much easier to approach problems that arise with historical context, common frameworks for problem solving, and a coordinated knowledge management process.
Functional.
There's also a bit of set it and forget it involved for stable systems and processes. I'm able to write the documentation once and either do it myself with my own documentation or train someone else to do it.
Example.
My team uses the Campus KB for all of our documentation needs and attempts to ensure we create connections to better facilitate problem-solving processes along the way as we train new students and things along those lines. But whatever tool you use, make sure it's stable, logically organized, and shared amongst the team. You know, if you have someone on a wiki and someone on a KB, it's a bifurcation. It gets more complicated. And the whole point of this is simplicity. Documentation also allows me to record procedural information for future reference, but enables the team to stay informed on past and recent developments, especially as more information becomes available about a given problem. And finally, my understanding of these ideas no longer belongs to just me if I write them down. They can become a shared effort, and that's really important to me. I may still have to teach a procedure or provide the historical context necessary for why something is the way it is, but that doesn't have to be at the expense of the task. That can still be prioritized. And I do have caveats with every single one of these slides, just so we're clear. So documentation, not always straightforward. This a presentation alone could not be a document. You know, it's not something, one thing that came to mind while Lois was talking today was culture cannot be documented, right? And this is a cultural thing. How do we plan for when people move on? This isn't something you want. You want it to be inherent. So you should try, even if it's at a conference or something along those lines.
Slide title.
Next up, share the burdens and the rewards through collaboration. Because collaboration is all about sharing the work in a mutually beneficial way.
Example.
The InfoLabs program and technology circulation, active learning classrooms with the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Mentoring, which is CTLM up there, and the formation of Design Lab with the Com Arts Department. The libraries have a long history of this approach to partnership to achieve common goals. So why not include that in a leadership framework? My team is able to approach partnerships internally due to our understanding and reference point of external partnerships that the libraries have in place. We're engaging with them every single day. So no single person on my team is the sole provider for a service, nor are they expected to be the only person who understands a specific process because it's documented. And I encourage my team to take vacations, so ideally they have backups.
Strategic.
As mentioned before, we're a small team with a broad range of responsibilities. So each time I had to fill a role in our structure, I attempted to maximize each role's flexibility and model that behavior of shared ownership. Real-world examples of this shared ownership model include student supervision. All of us are engaged in that. Ticket management, all of us are engaged in that. Documentation, you get the point, and public services. There are other examples, but those are the most straightforward again. That wouldn't require an entire second set of slides.
Functional.
Although the responsibility of planning and prioritization may be within one person's hands, the organization and implementation of the work falls to multiple people, if not everyone on the team. We have also created a culture wherein we see what is owned by a single person, and we seek to understand more about it through cross-training and open dialogue. So, caveats for this slide. Changing the team structure isn't always possible or desirable. Don't get me wrong. I've been able to do this because, again, natural churn, student staff and the early career professionals in my employ. There are times when a service is not big enough or established enough to share, and that's fine, as long as the other components in the framework are followed, right? Documentation is continued and those types of things. We'll get to the others. And then leadership needs to be aware of and able to back up all of the work. So that is probably the most provocative statement in this slide.
Text. Organize and prioritize.
Next up. Organize and prioritize through delegation. As a leader, delegation should always be a part of the toolkit. Delegation comes in different forms and can be approached in multiple ways, but my current approach comes from the 11 years I've been on campus, as well as my time with Moore & Associates for the IT leadership program. During my tenure, naturally, I've amassed a lengthy list of responsibilities organically, as you do. But thankfully, most of the things in my portfolio make sense to be there, which I know is not always common.
Strategic.
As I've taken on more, I've either needed to stop doing things, which I know is also a bit provocative, or deprioritize things. Sometimes, however, in the past, that was not necessarily done with intention.
Example.
The ITLP helped me to consistently make these moves with intention and to focus on those things that could be democratized. I refer to it now as moving something down stack. What can our students be involved in? What can our early career professionals be involved in? How can I free up space to think more strategically while empowering those in the portfolio to learn something new develop further with a stretch goal, take ownership of an important task the team needs to prioritize, and make progress toward their own career goals in the process. Delegation is easy then, right? Yeah, everybody chuckled. Just for those online, everyone laughed. It was uproarious.
Functional.
One aspect of delegation that I became well acquainted with through the ITLP was loss, was grief, because you had to give something up, something you've staked your claim on, something that's become a part of your work identity. You want to talk about obsolescence, you start to feel obsolete as you give something away. But the idea here is to normalize that process and empower those around you through that loss. So once that process is normalized, we can start to work through it out in the open in a democratized way as well. I'm also then modeling that behavior for my staff so that they feel comfortable doing that same delegation effort. So what's the process? We take something on, we document it, we learn more about it, we document it some more, the larger context changed and we have to deprioritize it. We pass it along to the next person that ideally can reprioritize it, bring it back to the forefront, and now with a fresh perspective and desire to move it to its next stage of evolution. So I don't have caveats this time, aside from the grief and loss, which maybe is a major caveat to some. But I do have ways to think of delegation through questioning. What task is yours that could be ours? Why is it still yours? If you left for vacation today, what would have to wait until you returned, and would that cause other problems? Where should you be delegating the work that you purposefully are holding on to for other reasons? Perhaps reasons that are no longer valid, necessary, or self-serving.
Slide. Standardize and automate.
Last one, last component. Standardize and automate for efficiency. In tech support, efficiency is the hardest one to talk about. That's why it's the last. That's probably the only reason why it's the last.
Strategic.
It's mostly a subjective trait in technology support because you have to see it, which also means that it may be surfaced in uncomfortable ways. Where is the team falling down? Where are we not being effective? Where are we not being efficient? And when did failures occur?
Functional.
But it's relatively easy to use efficiency objectively through questioning our intent when making decisions. It's always been done this way. People have heard that. This is so-and-so's responsibility. Those become shorthand for the sense that a given task can in fact be done differently, maybe even more effectively, if not for ideological disagreements or structural inadequacies within the team. Also, a leader can approach any situation with curiosity to clarify an intent. So those questions again. Where are we duplicating effort because of a historical context that's no longer important? Where are the manual processes that could be automated? And would standardization and automation include a good return on investment even?
Seek out efficiencies.
Where can we find a better approach by simplifying or consolidating solutions with our peers? I know I said it, consolidation is a bad word. I know. I get it.
Example.
The most straightforward example of this in my team is patron-facing computing. So we've been able to work with DoIT's SEAM team, no joke, it rhymes, system endpoint and application management team, in order to find both front and back end efficiencies that we can engage with them on. So things like the patron-facing experience for computing and printing, those all go into the InfoLabs bucket in a sense. We try to make sure that all of our computing looks the same, and because of that pre-existing partnership, we've been able to use it. We can also use the systems on the back end that they have built up over the years so that we don't have to also have systems of our own. The AD migration comes in.
Slide text. Empower. Leaders focus on long-term development.
So one of the connective threads that I see through each of these components is empowerment. Empowerment comes from a place in which you want to see the people around you succeed by taking ownership of a task, a project, or a service. And especially as a structural leader of a team, my aim should be to assist for long-term development of those around me. By taking the 4 components and creating a personal practice around them, we can help others build their experience and work toward new levels of expertise, confidence, and independence.
Personal practice transforms culture.
But even if you don't lead a team in a traditional sense, a rising tide lifts all ships. We have the opportunity to empower those around us for the betterment of all. And if you take nothing else from the talk today, take these components as a starting point for your journey of planning for your own personal obsolescence, even if it's temporary, like a 5-week vacation, or you want to take a day. You want to have a kid. You want to have a hobby. These are, again, natural things. So I said I'd talk about it. So here we are. What about AI?
Yeah, what about it?
As you might expect, given the timeline I offered earlier, 2014, AI was not factored into the methodology as it stood originally and as it's progressed. As a library professional, I really think about AI as a tool, not as a solution. And so the methodology doesn't change, but perhaps it gets clarified along the way. It's a lot easier to explain automating a process in a general context if your AI assistant can spit out working code or salient suggestions to get you on the road to success. Documentation is an important part of any process, but AI enables quick work of templatizing that documentation and creating a too long didn't read section. Lastly, though, AI solidifies the point about planned obsolescence for me, because you may think Apple's trying to get more of our money, but they were even found flat-footed with AI. They were obsoleting their phones by, building it for Siri, but Siri's not any better yet. So.
Slide text conclusions. Let it go.
Conclusions. Everybody is supposed to sing Frozen here. That's what my notes say.
Slide text, a new lens, takeaways.
So, in the end, this isn't novel. Succession planning is normal. Leaders in administrative or managerial positions should be succession planning and preparing the people around them for the day when they leave. What this methodology does is create a lens for those leaders anywhere in the organizational chart at any point in their leadership journey to approach prioritizing these components in their work, so that they can rest assured that the work will continue on regardless of their specific presence or active stewardship.
Let it go.
We need to be able to let go of the notion that sharing a given burden will make us less secure in our jobs. Let go of the possibility that giving something up to empower someone else will somehow make us weaker. And we need to let go of that thing holding us back from taking time for our vacation or hobby. If you take small steps to make yourself a bit obsolete today, it'll benefit you in the short term and other people in the long term. Thanks.
Slide text questions. Thank you for your time.
All right, we got a few minutes here for questions. If you have a question online, please type it, and then we will read that out loud here. If you have a question in the room, just raise your hand. I'll come around with the microphone.
I see a quick question in chat. What leaders are there besides structural ones? That sounds interesting, right? So for Robert, the idea here is that leaders can come in any form. You can lead in a project, you can lead in a service, you can lead by example. And as you feel more confident in your role within a given space, regardless of if you have individuals you're supervising, you can lead. You lead in culture, you lead in behaviors. Those are all ways to be a leader. It doesn't have to come with a specific paycheck or title.
That was actually kind of related to what I wanted to ask. So I'm now in a leadership position. I used to be the only person working on this particular service, but now I have a team underneath me, and I am delegating things. I'm empowering other people. They're growing. Great, good for them. But what's left to me is making me miserable. I'm giving away all of the parts of my job I actually enjoyed, and what's left, I hate. So I'm happy that they're empowered and they're growing, but I'm miserable every day. So it's kind of like, does that mean that leadership is not for me? Is that the inevitable slide? Should I be finding something else to do? Because I hate being a manager. I hate it. I never wanted to be one, but because of my institutional knowledge and my technical expertise, there really isn't anybody else who can be in charge of this team. But man, I really wish there was.
Loaded.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I've struggled with as a manager over time is the notion that we can't have anything for ourselves, right? The manager becomes less operational. I think there are levels of leadership that require you to become less operational, director level and above. In our situation, I have to be a part of the team. I have to be able to understand what's happening outside of us and what's happening inside. And so stewardship is potentially where I'm going here, potentially. I am still the steward of all of the things that we do because I'm involved, but I'm also the decision maker to some extent. So as the needs change of the environment, I should also be engaged in the conversations about what's happening on the ground in a day-to-day way. Is that, I mean, it doesn't help with a larger question, but at a foundational level, managers need to both be able to straddle that line of both leading and doing. Okay?
Everybody, that's about time. Let's say thank you to Jay for his
Thanks, everybody.
awesome talk today on planned obsolescence.